Hi, welcome to today's webinar. We'll be starting in a few minutes, so just give us a short time just to allow other attendees to join, and then we'll get started. But just a few minutes and we'll launch the event. So if you've just joined us in the past minute or so, we will start the presentation in just a minute or so. Just give time for last minute attendees to join. Okay, I think we'll get started. It's my pleasure to welcome you to Staffordshire University's webinar and welcome you on behalf of Angela Priestman, the Head of Department of Biological Sciences here at Staffordshire. The purpose of this webinar is to essentially connect us to you. We're very much interested in reaching out to the life sciences community to be more involved in your research so that we can perhaps establish collaborations or perhaps even research contracts with you. And of course, we're here essentially to introduce the interests of the team and also to introduce how you can work with us and how we can work with you in your own research interests. So if we can have the next slide, please. Although I've just introduced and welcomed you to the Department of Biological Sciences, really the focus of today's webinar is more on the Biosciences Research Hub. Why not just the department? Because of course Biosciences at Staffordshire University is more than just biological sciences. We have other colleagues that very much feed into our research programs. For example, you'll notice on the slide that we have the Urban Environment Research Group. Very much some of our geography colleagues are part of that research environment. So hence we created a number of years ago the Biosciences Research Hub. My name is Dr. Arthur Hosey. I am the Biosciences Research Lead. I'm a microbiologist, and I'm going to sort of lead off the presentation to give an introduction to some of our research groups. In this webinar, we're actually just going to focus on 2 of our 5 research groups within the Biosciences Research Hub. The ones that we aren't going to talk about are the Urban Environment Research Group, which is very active here at Staffordshire and establishing, if you like, our urban ecology, trying to improve conservation practice. But also there's the Invertebrate Research Group led up by Dave Skingsley, and also the Bioscience Practitioner Learning Research Group. But we thought for the purposes of focus in this webinar, we would focus on just the 2 research groups at the top there, the Molecular and Cellular Biology Research Group and the Healthcare Science and Diagnostics Research Group. I'll introduce them in a moment and pass over to the actual group leaders. But can I just emphasise that if you have any questions that you would like to ask at the end of the webinar, we would very much encourage you to just post them throughout the webinar, and we'll return to questions at the end. So please use the chat function to post any questions that you may have for any of the presenters, and we'll address them at the end of the webinar. Have the next slide, please, Gavin. So I've said that we're going to focus on 2 different research groups, the Molecular and Cellular Biology Research Group, and then for abbreviation, the Diagnostics Research Group. And I thought I would use my slide to introduce myself, but also how, if you like, these research groups are not static entities. There's very much dynamic research, and there's, of course, overlap between them. My own personal research interests is in microbiology. I have an interest in how bacteria interact with hosts, especially in how bacteria cause disease, but not just disease, but also in symbiosis. My research journey started quite a number of years ago at Glasgow University, and I developed an interest in molecular microbiology. And I exploited that in my research to date, working, for example, in the role of transport proteins and nutrient acquisition and pathogenesis. But really that research stemmed from some preliminary work that we did when I was at Reading, when we looked at the role of nutrient acquisition in symbiosis in leguminous plants. And we very much are interested in these transport proteins because they are potential targets for vaccine development or potential antimicrobial agents. And that's where this research thread came from. But also transport proteins are not just involved in nutrient acquisition, they're also involved in perhaps exporting antimicrobial agents, either as a form of self-defense or perhaps a form of chemical warfare within the environment. So again, another thread of my research interest is the role of transport proteins in signalling and perhaps antimicrobial resistance. But I wanted to acknowledge that, yes, that very much fits into the molecular and cellular biology research group, but my interests go further. I have a teaching interest and also a research interest in molecular typing and diagnostics, predominantly in how we can investigate outbreaks within a local setting. But I very much have a teaching interest in emerging infectious disease. So if any of you have an interest in actually looking at infectious disease outbreaks, or perhaps talking about pandemic preparedness, I'm very, very happy to talk to you about these things. So I hope that slide is illustrated that although we're talking about two research groups, there very much is overlap between them. And I'm going to hand over now to Gavin McStay, who's going to tell you a little bit more detail about the molecular and cellular biology research group.
Okay, thank you, Arthur, for passing over to me. So my name is Gavin McStay. I am the research group leader for the Molecular and Cellular Biology Research Group. And this group has a number of active researchers in it who study many different things, from microbiology like Arthur to other diseases such as cancer, and then we incorporate a lot of other types of aspects in terms of biochemistry, genetics, immunology, cancer biology within this group. So we have a wide range of expertise and research interests. And here is just the names of the individuals involved in this research group at the moment. And so Arthur has already told us about his interests. And I will tell you a little bit about my research interests and then a little bit about each of the individuals who are not presenting today. So I'm an associate professor at Staffordshire University in the Department of Biological Sciences, and I have been here for just over 3 years now. My interests are in mitochondrial biology and how they play a role in health and disease. So some of my current interests relate to how mitochondria respond to different types of stressful conditions that an organism, a tissue, or a cell may encounter. And so these types of stressful conditions could be something related to an inhibitor of mitochondria themselves, or an inhibitor of metabolism. So there's many of these examples of these at the moment, very well characterized. Things like some pesticides are very strong mitochondrial metabolic inhibitors, which have been studied very in detail for a while. But as more and more chemicals are being synthesized and being identified as potentially being toxic, there may be impacts on mitochondria and metabolism that needs to be investigated. So part of my interests are trying to understand how mitochondria respond to these toxins and these stressful conditions. So there are many therapeutics being developed that are in attempts to cure and treat diseases, and a number of these have been shown to have impacts on mitochondrial function. And so it's important to assess these chemicals and their impacts on mitochondria and metabolism as well. And then there are several environmental and physical factors that can impact on mitochondrial function directly. So things like UV and heat stress, all these kinds of things can eventually impact on mitochondria. So to address these questions, over my research career so far, I've been using a number of different techniques to address how mitochondria respond to these stressful conditions. So there are ways to monitor gene expression of mitochondrial genes, so genes that are targeted to the mitochondria that exist in the nucleus, but also mitochondrial DNA encoded genes from the mitochondria's own genome. So evaluating the expression of genes can give profiles as to how a mitochondria and a cell is responding to these conditions. I'm also, I've done many types of metabolic analysis where we're looking at mitochondrial function directly, so related to oxygen consumption. And now at Staffordshire, we've got some new capabilities to analyze glycolytic and oxidative phosphorylation within cells to assess any direct effect on these metabolic pathways. Also, mitochondrial biogenesis and how mitochondria are generated can be impacted by stressful conditions. So this relates to how mitochondria form and how many mitochondria exist within a particular cell. So using a number of biochemical techniques, you can evaluate how the mitochondria are forming and how the electron transport complexes are assembled, and then eventually assess activity. Also, mitochondrial functions, if they change, can impact on cellular signaling. So this can result in activation of certain signal transduction pathways, changing of post-translational modifications. And then ultimately, there are pathways where mitochondria would lead to programmed cell death. So how does a mitochondria that's been signaled in the programmed cell death pathway cause a cell to die? So studying proteins related to BCL2 and caspases and their effects on a cell are also part of what I'm interested in. So these are my main kind of research interests. I also have related interests in terms of looking at biomedical research literature and being able to identify this through the large numbers of research papers that are being published on a weekly basis now, or on a daily basis even. And so through some of my collaborators, we're doing work to look at how machine learning can be used to identify papers for biomedical researchers as well. So if anyone has any interest in either of these aspects in terms of biomedical research literature identification or mitochondrial biology, I would be very happy to talk with you. But next, I'll just mention some of the highlights of our other members of the molecular and cellular biology research group. So here we've just got the other investigators within this group, and as I said before, the interests range broadly from microbiology, immunology, cancer biology, with a variety of expertise in certain techniques and types of analysis. So these range from studying cancer biology and metastasis and the roles protein expression and post-translational modifications with Dr. Grace Atabatele. Dr. William De Silveira is interested in aging, systems biology, space biology, and bioinformatics. So very, very exciting and I guess current news related to certain people going up into space in the next few days. Then Trust Dia, who's interested in adipogenesis, differentiation, and nutrition. Dr. Ahmad Haidari, who's interested in microvesicles and their impacts on health and disease, especially in context of cancer and immunology. Dr. Chloe Hayes, who's interested in host microbe interactions. Dr. Samina Naseeb, who's interested in synthetic biology and identification of genetic traits for biotechnological applications. Rebecca Shears, also interested in host microbiome interactions and vaccines. And Sarah Williams, who's interested in exosomes in the immune system. So we have a wide range of interests which are complementary within this research group. So we have a wide range of expertise that is willing to be involved with collaborative efforts with people like you. So what I'll do now is I'll pass over to Ian, who will introduce our Healthcare Science and Applied Diagnostics research group.
Thanks, Gavin. So yes, my name's Ian Davis, and I'm a biomedical scientist by background, and I'm here to talk a little bit about our Healthcare Science and Applied Diagnostics Research Hub. And this hub is an interesting hub because what it does is bring together academic science and clinical practice. And that's quite an interesting and quite a dynamic field, because our team is made up of academic researchers and also practitioners with experience in clinical practice and connections across pathology services. Now, why that's interesting is around about 80% of clinical diagnoses are based upon healthcare science and the output from healthcare scientists. And it's also quite fascinating. We work across all clinical boundaries. So from literally before the cradle to after the grave, all those clinical specialities will have input from healthcare science. But also not just in a sort of static level, from primary care and interaction with general practitioners all the way through to tertiary care and specialist medical services. Pathology and healthcare science is sort of a string that ties all of these aspects together. So in terms of impact, the impact that healthcare scientists can have and making sure that diagnostics are applied and are appropriate actually has a unique position in not just individual patient journeys, but whole system approaches to diagnostic pathways and to health economics and making the best use of resources for the most. So from that, we've come to our Healthcare Science Hub, and I think what this is based upon is our reputation nationally for delivering quality education across pathology departments. So we started a few years ago with a healthcare science degree apprenticeship programme, and now we've got students, 120 students overall across the UK, who are based upon within pathology departments. And there's about 25 NHS trusts and pathology providers across England that we're involved in. And developing from that, then, that gives us a nice network that we can work with these NHS partners to develop both our undergraduate training, but also make impactful research through student projects, collaborations, and then higher academic research, all the way through to our professional doctorate programs that will allow us to pick up some of these strands and develop some really interesting ideas. So if I could just move to my slide, Gavin, which talks a little bit about me and my interests. So my background is a biomedical scientist. I trained as a hematologist and then as a clinical biochemist, and I've worked for 20 years or so in NHS pathology, becoming eventually a laboratory manager. And from that, what we're able to do is use our experience to identify unmet need. We know that around about 1 billion tests, laboratory tests, are done in the UK every year. That's a phenomenal number of tests, an incredible resource, impacting upon a huge amount of patient journeys. But we also know a lot of those tests maybe don't get followed up appropriately, maybe could be better applied in different areas. So a real focus of my interest is, I'm calling it diagnostic testing with impact, making sure every single test has value and has added value for that patient. So within that, I'm interested in demand optimization, making sure that we're using those resources appropriately, we're using the best test for the right thing at the right time. We're working to reduce variability and pre-analytical error, because again, if we're conducting these tests on precious samples from precious patients, what we want to make sure is we're getting the right results. And within that, I'm interested in multi-professional education. So how can we work better with other clinical professionals so that we are maximizing the impact of every single one of those billion tests? And that's adding value. It's adding value in terms of clinical outcomes. It's also adding value in terms of patient outcomes and patient safety. Essentially, the focus for me and a lot of the work that we're thinking of within this group is the right test on the right patient at the right time, getting the right result and getting the right action from that. And be that using new and emerging tests and developing those into clinical practice, or whether that's reviewing what we already have and making it better and smarter and more responsive to patient need. That's my focus, the focus of this particular group. So I'll pass on to my colleague, Amy Pennington, who will talk about her particular interest within healthcare science.
Thanks, Ian. So I'm from a similar background to Ian. I'm also a HCPC registered biomedical scientist, and I worked until quite recently as a senior biomedical scientist at the hospital local to Staffordshire University, and that's Royal Stoke University Hospital. So there I was involved in all sorts of aspects within haematology and transfusion, but my research interests coming into the university are haematological malignancies and primarily acute myeloid leukemia. So a lot of my interests do play into the topics that Ian has already touched on, about making sure we have the right test for the right patient at the right time. And obviously within haematological malignancy, that's expanding hugely over the last few years and over the coming years, with the development of particular haematological specialist centres across the country. Now, something I'm particularly interested in is the way that our patients from Royal Stoke are sent to either Manchester Christie or down to Birmingham, and having a look at how that impacts their patient journey and patient outcomes. So I'm interested in patient education pathways, about the clinical outcomes, and also about the development of the diagnostic pathways within pathology labs for biomedical scientists. So moving an emphasis from blood film morphology that was traditionally used onto flow cytometry and other cell diagnostics, how we can advance the skills of biomedical scientists within local labs, and how we can feed into these specialist centres across the UK by developing the right skills of the biomedical scientist workforce. And a lot of that feeds back into Ian's points about developing healthcare scientist apprenticeships right up to the professional doctorate. So that real connection from undergraduate level right up to postdoc, and I'll be starting a professional doctorate myself in January, so I can be the group guinea pig then, I suppose. I am interested in researching some of those pedagogic areas, so how we can develop the different education pathways and how we can respond to the needs of the workforce in the future. Yeah, so I think now would be a good point for me to hand back over to Arthur to talk about some of the facilities that we have here at Staffs.
Thanks, Amy. Before we move on to the facilities, let me just finish off by introducing some of our colleagues that can't join us today for various reasons. The Healthcare Science and Applied Diagnostic Research Group is actually led up by Dr. Sarah Williams. She is a clinical immunologist, but she also is a healthcare science professional accredited by the Healthcare Science Professional Council. So she's a biomedical scientist by training, but she has an interest not just in the biomedical science diagnostic facilities, but also in exosome biology. So again, bringing, if you like, some of the aspects of the molecular and cellular biology research group and applying them within the diagnostic setting. Some of our other colleagues also feed into this research group. Dr. Ahmed Hadri, who again we mentioned in the molecular and cellular biology research group, of course, his research very much feeds into this healthcare science and applied diagnostic research group. Another researcher who spans a number of our different research groups is Dr. Rich Halfpenny. Rich Halfpenny has an interest in, well, mosquitoes, especially medical entomology. He's also a bit of a data wizard. He's particularly good at analysing big data and actually coming up with innovative solutions to actually to bring sense to a lot of data that other people are scratching their head over. But very much we are a dynamic team. We're a dynamic team that have overlapping research interests, and we're a dynamic team with lots of connections internationally, as both Ian and Amy and others have alluded to within this webinar. But of course we have us as a team, as a resource that you can tap into. We also have our student body, our healthcare science apprentices. We have the biomedical science undergraduate students, the biological science undergraduate students, but also our master students in both the applied research and also the MSc in molecular biology. So we have these resources, but we also have facilities. So if we can have the next slide, please, Gavin. So this slide is quite busy, and essentially it's a list of different facilities that we have here. I'm not going to sit here and actually read them out, but I just wanted to give you a flavour of the different kinds of research that we can do and why we can do that here at Staffordshire, and we'd very much welcome the opportunity to work with you. Some of the themes that are riding the Bioscience Research Hub, of course, are molecular biology. We're well equipped with DNA sequencers. In fact, this is an area that we are seeking to grow in the near future to get greater capacity in next generation sequencing and beyond, so that we can actually apply these technologies to address the research questions, not just of the now, but of the future. And so very much we're seeking to expand that area. We have good laboratories that are dedicated, for example, for molecular biology, but also beyond in cell biology and microbiology. Well-equipped labs with a significant amount of space, but also the equipment that we require to actually do the analysis. We have an excellent analytical suite, especially for some of the biochemical analysis, HPLC, FTIR, NMR, a range of different analytical tools and experts that know how to run these things. So we do have a good support of technical services that can actually provide their expertise to address our research questions. We have good cell biology facilities in which we can carry out standard cell culture, but also to analyse the cells once we have actually grown them. Fluorescence microscopy, for example, chemiluminescence imaging, so that we can actually analyse perhaps gene expression within certain cell types. But my own area, of course, in microbiology, I am also the biological safety officer of the university, and of course I take a bit of an interest in the health and safety, but we can work here at Staffordshire at containment level 2, not just with biological microorganisms, but also genetic modification at that containment level, and we can do so safely. And we have built up over the years a significant strain collection that we can actually utilise as both if you like, control organisms, but also perhaps to investigate further, especially in some of the diagnostic aspects of our research. So we've tried to give an overview of what we have here in the Bioscience Research Hub in terms of people, in terms of connections, but also in terms of facilities. And I'd now like to pass over to Steve, who's going to tell us a little bit more about how the university more widely can perhaps help support you as a business.
Well, thanks very much, Arthur. It's always interesting to hear about our expertise at university. I think you'll agree we've got such a range of equipment and expertise that we really want to engage with businesses in the local and national community just to engage with us and to benefit from our expertise. So I'll just put a few slides together really just to give you an overview of what kind of things we do at the university and how you can get involved. Some of them are for SMEs and some of them are for larger companies, so I'll run through them individually. So we do offer funded support to companies who want to prototype. So this isn't just for the biosciences sector, this is for any sector, mainly engineering and manufacturing as well, mainly for SMEs, but we do work with non-SMEs as well. So if you do have any products that you need to develop, the university have got a lot of equipment and engineering as well as the biosciences that we can use. We offer funded support for innovations in transport, logistics and mobility. Again, another strand that we have at the university, separate to what we've just discussed for the biosciences. We also are very pleased to have an incubation and startup hatchery. So we do house startup businesses here at the university and support them in many sectors, including the sciences, tech, manufacturing, etc. So we do have a space where businesses can call their home and they can work either for a hot desk or a private office at a small rental charge per month. We've mentioned equipment there, and Arthur run through some of the equipment that we do have. We do have lots of equipment at the university. We do have that available to businesses if they want to hire the equipment for various reasons. So please contact us with your individual requirements and we'll let you know what kit we've got and how you can access that kit. As a university, we also support businesses to develop their skills and CPD, not only apprenticeships, but we do have short courses as well that we do offer to local and national businesses. So we've got a huge array of CPD offerings at the university. We're more than happy to discuss your requirements and get you some good training for your staff. We also have a recruitment agency here at the university called Unitemps. This branch that we have at Staffordshire University is just one branch of the year. So Unitemps are a national organisation, but our branch was deemed the best. So we support hundreds of businesses to find staff. So if you do want some staff with biomedical science skills, we do have access to the agency that can help you to find those staff. They can payroll them for you for short-term contracts or even long-term contracts as well. So any recruitment needs that you have, if you want to get hold of our talented students, then please contact us and we'll put you in touch with our agency that can help you there. And I've mentioned support for SMEs quite a lot, but we'll also support national companies and companies larger than an SME. We do welcome bids for funding through Innovate UK. We can go for KTP bids and smart grant bids as a partner. That's something we do quite often. So if you do want access to talent and you're thinking about different ways, then certainly a KTP is something worth investigating, and we can help you to set that up as well. Next slide, please. So I'd like to invite you to come to our Innovation Expo, which on our website there under events, you'll be able to see the link and the invite. That is on the 27th of October, and that's at the university, and that shows off a lot of our equipment and a lot of our expertise that you mentioned. Also, to keep in touch with us, you can email us employers@staffs.ac.uk, and we'll answer any questions, and we'll put you in touch with the team that you've spoken to today from the sciences if you've got any particular questions. Also wanted just to invite it out for questions now for the panel. If anyone's got any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat, and we'll see if we've got answers to those. So we have got one question already, so I'll open this up to the panel, whoever wants to take this. Someone has asked, what kind of placements do we offer as a department and as a university? So does anybody want to cover that for biomedical sciences?
I could perhaps make a start and my colleagues could add to it. All of the students that we have at Staffordshire University and in the Department of Biological Sciences do have to undertake at least a short-term placement as part of their programme before they graduate. So we have students that are available at undergraduate level to actually go out and to work with companies to get research experience if that is what they desire. So we have short-term placement opportunities. We also offer degree programmes with a placement year. So we have year-long programmes, and a number of our students have been out to actually do year-long programmes with companies around the UK. We also have master students who are seeking to do their research projects, and it might well be that they can work alongside you as part of that programme. I'm not sure if Gavin wants to come in and say a little bit more about the possibility of postgraduate students doing placements with you.
Yeah, our master's students have a project module which is usually lab-based, and a number of students can do this on campus with us or in some partner institutions. We've recently started to increase the number of external collaborators where our students can go, which has both been nationally but also internationally as well. So through making agreements with the host institution, we can certainly consider these types of placements for our master's students.
And finally, just to add to that, we do have the agency as well. So if you want a placement that's not curricular, part-time or over the summer, then we do have an agency that can help you to set up those kind of placements as well. So we've got an array of choices.
Yeah, and in addition to actually students going out and working, sorry Steve if I cut you off there, in addition to students going out and working perhaps in short-term or longer-term placements, we also have a number of other modules that we are seeking to work alongside industry in. So for example, one of our modules working with industry, we have had students in the past academic year, for example, writing perhaps policy type documents or research type documents with industry partners. So we've got a range of different possibilities, as Steve just summarised, both the work perhaps in your facilities or work here in our facilities on some of your research, or potentially using the expertise of our students to perhaps write different documents for you in your industry.
Excellent. So we've got another question. Is there any research programme in biological science, and do we offer MPhil?
I can certainly answer that. Yes, we have two different postgraduate research opportunities. Of course, we've got the traditional PhD route, which does have an MPhil possibility. So yes, we do offer PhDs in it and traditional MPhil research programs. We also have our ProfDoc. Amy mentioned the Healthcare Science ProfDoc program that we offer here at Staffordshire. So perhaps if you are working in healthcare and you are interested in doing a research degree, then you can do that. It takes a little bit longer because you're, of course, partly doing it part-time, working in your own workplace, but there are research opportunities, shorter term, MPhil, longer term, PhD and ProfDocs. But we also have an applied research master's program, which is a combination of project-driven work, but also a top program. So there's a range of different postgraduate research opportunities related to research that we do offer here at Staffordshire, and I would very much welcome a conversation with anyone that is interested in doing that.
Excellent. We've got another question that's just come in. Do you provide opportunities for international students to complete master's research projects?
Sorry, I didn't quite catch that question, Steve. Can you just repeat it?
Yeah, do you provide opportunities for international students to complete master's research projects?
Yes, and we have a lot of experience of doing that. Gavin can perhaps say a little bit more about the research projects that are done in the MSc Molecular Biology programme, but of course we definitely welcome international students that are perhaps interested in the MPhil and PhD routes as well, and of course the Healthcare Science ProfDoc. And if you're interested in doing professional doctorates other than in the healthcare science, then we're absolutely happy to talk with you as well. But perhaps, Gavin, do you want to say anything about research projects in the Masters?
Yeah, so for our MSc in Molecular Biology, we have a distance learning version of this course, which many students over the years it's been running have been based outside of the UK. And so these students have been able to carry out projects either within a lab which is close to where they're based, or they've been able to come over to the UK and carry out their project within our labs. So if you are a distance learning student and you are based in another country, you would be able to do some of your research projects with us using our facilities. And we also have accepted and taken on students through other programs as well, outside of masters as well. So things like the Erasmus program, which is being phased out, but we hope to continue this type of international collaboration with our other university partners around the world.
Excellent. It doesn't appear that we've got any more questions, so I think we'll bring today's session to a close. I'd just like to thank all of the panel for an excellent talk, and invite anybody else for any final questions just before we close. In fact, we've just got one in now. I have seen ready-to-go research projects on the website in Biosciences. I want to know if I can select one of the projects. What is the next step I should do? I'm not sure if that's from a potential student or a business. It's not clear, but
It sounds as if it's from a potential student, but I can address that question. Happy to do so. The next step would be either to contact myself as the postgraduate research lead in the department, or indeed the supervisor that is mentioned in the Ready to Go research programs. So if you do have an interest in that in one of these areas or related areas, then we'd encourage just a dialogue to be initiated between, as I say, myself as the research lead in the department, or the individual supervisors. So that dialogue can be initiated by email, and we're happy to meet over Teams or the like.
excellent. And there was one final question that's just come in. What is the best way to connect with the individual biosciences teams, different areas of expertise?
Reach out and contact us. Our contact details are available on the website. Usually it's a combination of our name and at staffs.ac.uk. So we're more than happy to actually talk to anyone that has an overlapping research interest, both in terms of collaborations or potentially perhaps hosting students or from us or to us. So just reach out and have a dialogue with us, and we'll be hopefully get that common interest.
And are you all on LinkedIn as well? Can people connect to you via LinkedIn?
Yeah, we're on a range of different platforms, both as individuals, but also as a department. So we're very active on Twitter. We have a research Twitter feed as well. So feel free to contact individual academics by direct messaging on Twitter or LinkedIn, or indeed just the traditional email route.
Excellent. And I think that's all the questions. So again, we'll close off now. And thank you everyone for your time. Thanks to the panel for a really engaging presentation, and hopefully see you all at the Expo on the 27th. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.